I'm Jared Dienda, and this is Tool Tips. We're having a discussion on brushless. Right here, I have the big old boy CT9075, and you have?
The brand new CT9010, the little brother to the big boy.
Yeah, you could see that, just the whole casing there. I mean, this thing packs a punch, but you still have a lot of power in that 9010.
So 240 foot-pounds of operating torque and over 325 foot-pounds of bolt breakaway torque, which is actually really interesting because 3/8 fasteners are rated well below that. So this tool packs a punch, plenty that you need.
Might be overkill, but it exists.
Right, it might be overkill, but it's there when you want it. And what's cool is that this, just like the 9075, has the 3 power levels. So both forward and reverse, you can choose what kind of power you want to deliver based on the job that you're working on.
Now let's step inside. These are components you don't normally see. So we have Snap-on's internals and the competitor's internals. Where do we begin?
Let's start with the controller. So down in the very handle of the tool, first off, this is fully potted in resin. And that's important because, you know, when your gun is sitting there rattling around, right, it's naturally gonna maybe knock solder loose within that tool. If you lose a solder joint in here from a wire, well, what's gonna happen? Your tool's probably not gonna work, right? So it's important to make sure that all of that stays put where we want it and is safe, and especially if you drop it too, like you could break a solder joint like that, right? So we fully pot it in resin to make sure that it's safe and protected.
Yeah, when you step inside, you can see the construction here. The wires, that's exposure for failure of the actual impact. And then outside, it's plastic compared to the metal housing. Trigger, now, I have the motor attached here.
Right.
Let's talk about the motor within the Snap-on.
Right, so this is our brushless motor out of the 9010. And what's great about this is that it is fully caged. And the reason we do that is we don't want it integrated as part of the housing. So we have a high strength glass nylon body. And so this is obviously very strong for dropping and the abuse that you're gonna put it through, but this sits inside of here. It's not part of it. So you can kind of see there's the back plate, there's the motor. And when you have that, motors are only as good as the alignment, right? So this is very precise alignment to make sure that you get the most amount of RPM, the most amount of power out of this motor. Whereas if you drop it and you kick that back plate just a little bit, maybe you don't see any damage, maybe there's no scuff, but it only takes a slight misalignment for that to just be off enough. And that's where you start to lose your performance.
Right, and again, just another exposure for failure in the competitor's product.
Correct.
So you can see that engine there, 2 separate units as opposed to that one-piece body that's protecting the already protected internals. I mean, again, you talked about the potted, you talked about the cage, this all contributes to the integrity. Let's step even further into the internals, the bearings. And they have the same diameter there, but thickness and ball bearings, that's what really separates Snap-on from the rest of the pack.
Correct, so we have a little bit thicker bearing and the ball bearings themselves are much larger diameter, and because of that, you can carry up to 30% more load with the bearing. So it just, again, it's taking it one step further. Yes, you could go with a smaller, cheaper bearing and it'll work. But if you want that tool to perform at the highest level for as long as possible, you need to step the components up. You need to invest in a better product.
Let's talk about the gears, because it comes down to material, because you can tell there's a difference by the finish, but also the cut. So break it down.
That's right. So our gears come as a piece of high strength bar stock. We then cut it and then machine it. So it's very precise to our specification through our machining process. The competitor is a powdered metal that is then forged and becomes this straight cut gear that's very quick, simple, and cheap to manufacture. So again, taking it another step further by taking your time, getting the best material possible, the best machining process possible. Okay, so if you look at the machining of the gears themselves, right? So ours has a helical cut and theirs is a straight cut. And you have to think about this, let's take it back to automotive side, right? So you have essentially like a race transmission. So like when that thing goes in, a big clank, right? Makes a ton of noise, it's a harsh engagement. And you know, part of that harsh engagement is those things are rebuilt all the time because they're meant to just get slammed, and that doesn't work, right? When you have a helical cut, it's much smoother engagement, it's going to last much longer, and you want those gears to mesh together.
I mean, here it is. You can see there is a difference when it comes to tools. Brushless technology, worry less with the warranty. Snap-on Tools delivers.